Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and today we're continuing my top 100 board games of all time list. This is our 2022 editions, and these are numbers 70 through 61. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please make sure that you do. It is the best way to help us grow, and these games we're talking about today in particular are going to be all 8s as well as some 9s. This is where we get into the 9 category. So first off, we have the 8s, which are very good games. I like to play them. Probably I'll suggest them, and I will never turn down these games. And then we get to the 9s, and I'll warn you when those are about to happen, and these are excellent games that I always want to play. Flat out excellent games. Now that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the list with number 70. Number 70 is going to Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice. Now this is a stealth game based off of the V Commando system that has you playing as a member of the Assassins. You're going to be in Italy completing missions, doing your best to improve your base as well as your own characters, their weapons and items, but also doing your best to achieve the objectives from each mission in this persistent campaign. Assassin's Creed uses a very simple 3-action system where you get some cubes and you can use them to move around, attack, trigger items, or complete objectives, and that's the main thing you're trying to do. Now the big thing here though, and my favorite part about the game, is the stealth system. During your turn you may do something risky and that might have you rolling these red dice. If you hit eyeballs, which is a 33% chance, you may be caught and everybody knows you're there now. The scenario will shift in its intensity and kind of its flow because you're no longer sneaking around, you're rushing at blistering speeds, maybe doing more attacks. It's a very fascinating switch, and it's something that really entices me to want to play more of it. I love the objective system, and I also really love the item system because you're consistently getting items, which means that you're going to be consistently using them, and I find that a lot of fun in these large campaign games instead of just hoarding items. So this is a really fun, fascinating game that integrates the theme well. That is my number 70, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood of Venice. My number 69 is going to Res Arcana. This came in at 75 last year and has you playing the role of mages. You're going to be using these mages to build artifacts and claim places of power, as well as construct monuments in a race to the most victory points. Now this game is super fantastic with the way it works. On your turn you have some simple options. You either play a card from your hand by paying its cost, use a card that's already on the board, or you can discard cards in order to gain resources of different types. And I really like this. There's a lot of fixing and you could kind of use everything as multi-use, and I think that's really fantastic. Now my favorite part about this game is the public display of information at the start. At the very start of the game you're going to be doing a draft phase. This is the variant technically, but I think it is the best way to play this game the way I prefer. But you're going to be doing a draft where you're taking 4 cards and 2 mages, and then you'll kind of assess what cards you want to take from there, pass them around the table, and then you'll do it a second time. You'll take 4 more cards. So at the very end of this draft, you'll have 8 of these artifact cards that make up your deck, and that's awesome. And then you'll pick a mage that works well with those. But the coolest thing about this is that all of the information, the places of power, which are these large point scoring engines that are face up on the table, are public information. So you can build your deck based on which of these places of power that you are going to attempt to go for, or maybe multiple places of power that you're going to attempt to go for. You can really focus on building an engine based on the cards that you draft, as well as the cards available on the board, and it makes for a very tight game with all of this pressure onto when do I prioritize doing things, and when is the best time to go for specific aspects, or to focus on building an engine. I think this is such a fantastic game. It's a great tense, tight experience with lots of flavor in the cards, and the expansions, both Alexa Tenebrae and Perle Imperii, integrate extremely well, just offering more variety and more choices, but not changing any of the core gameplay, and I really like that. So they work extremely well. It's just more good stuff. So that is my number 69, Res Arcana. My number 68 goes to Quacks of Quedlinburg. This came in at 62 last year, and it's a push your luck bag building game where you play as doctors, quacks. You're going to be creating these potions and doing so by pulling chips from your bag. Now you're trying to pull as many of these chips as possible, triggering their abilities and effects while trying not to pull more than 7 value of the white chips. As soon as you get more than 7, your pot explodes, and at the end of that round, you're going to have to decide if you want to go for chips or if you want to go for points. And when you go for chips, you can buy new chips for your pot, but points are obviously the way you're going to win the game. But the game does have a catch-up mechanism where if you are behind, you're going to get rat tails, which increase your pot's distance, so you start even further the next round, which will let you buy more things and score more points. So it does feel good even when you are busting in the early rounds. Now that being said, my favorite part about this game is the way that the abilities of the pieces work. Every time you play, you have all of these ingredient panels, and these panels are going to determine what the colors mean. which is fantastic because you're reusing the same components, but each round they're going to have a different feeling and make for extremely enticing gameplay. I really like the 2 expansions that come with it, particularly the Alchemist expansion. It offers a lot of new events and new ways that you can mitigate and change up the gameplay throughout the course of the game outside of the normal routes. So you may have abilities that you put things back in your bag, or you may have abilities to buy extra chips, or just do all sorts of really interesting things. And I really say that if you're going to get this game, make sure to get that Alchemist expansion. I think it does change it up, and it's going to be something that you want to continuously pull out. So fantastic game. I love the bag building. That is Quacks of Quedlinburg, my number 68. My number 67, coming in at 48 last year, is Batman Gotham City Chronicles. This is a game where you play as heroes or villains in the Batman universe, and you're going to take on each other trying to complete objectives while you do so. There are a variety of game modes for this. There's a story mode where it's a 1 versus all, where you're going to be using a team of heroes fighting against a huge slew of villains. The villain player has this dashboard they're going to be using to control everybody, and then the heroes are going to be taking these flowing turns where they can go as much as they want and save some cubes for later while trying to complete the objectives. But my favorite way to play this game, my favorite part about this game, is the 2-player version. I really love the versus mode because not only do both players get to use this command board, which is my favorite thing about this. I love the way the tiles click out and you're able to move whole units and really feel like you're doing a lot. I really like this system, but I also like the cube management and disc management when it comes to activating tiles and the increasing costs of actions. I think this is a very smart system, and I love how customizable this mode is. You can pick any heroes you want, any teams of cronies and henchmen. It is so fascinating, the different combinations. And I also really like how you can pick a team leader, and that leader will get some special ability that activates when you trigger the tile. It's a lot of fun, and I think it's really clean. I really like this versus system as opposed to that campaign, which is still a lot of fun, but this is my preferred way to play. It is a blast, and it really makes you feel like you're in this Batman universe because there are so many different missions to pick from. If you want to do something that's more objective-based, you can. If you want an all-out brawl, you can. But I also really like how whenever you attack somebody, that player is allowed to roll defense dice, so players are constantly rolling dice on both players' turn, so it does feel like you're engaged. Turns are quick, activations are straightforward. Not gonna lie, the symbology and the iconography is a beast. The rulebook is terrible, but Paul Grogan is currently working on, I think he's finished with the new rulebook. There's a Season 3 in the works now that also is going to be introducing solo and cooperative play, and I just can't wait to play more of this game. I really like this, and I'm excited to try out these new modes, but for right now, Batman Gotham City Chronicles is my number 67. My number 66, coming in at number 20 last year, is The Castles of Burgundy. This is a Euro game where you're building a duchy, and doing so by taking these tiles using dice. You use the dice to grab the tile, or use those dice to place the tile in a kingdom in front of you. You can also use the dice to ship goods, as well as interact with different markets, all sorts of different options when it comes to your actions. Now, my favorite part about this game is the simplicity of the actions, but the variety of choice when it comes to the effects and powers of the tile. Every single action in this game is going to facilitate you taking a tile of some sort and using that tile to place it onto your own personal board. Whenever you place a tile, it has an effect associated, whether it be getting points, giving you passive abilities for the future, increasing your turn order, or you have the brown buildings which have an assortment of powers. In addition to that, you're trying to complete these districts with different colors, which gives you points for going down specific tiles. Because of your starting board, or just the way that the tiles flop at the beginning of the game, you're going to have a lot of choices and different routes to go, so there really is a lot of freedom, choice, and very interesting decisions when it comes to placing these things and prioritizing specific tiles. I love the amount of options present, the smoothness of the gameplay, the mitigation through the use of workers, and how you can forego that mitigation and play into the luck, force some push your luck elements, and try to risk things that way. I also really like the new Anniversary Edition expansion, which comes with all of the currently released expansions, as well as a new one, which is really fascinating, that gives you special abilities that you have to pay for, but you can only claim when you roll doubles. And I really like that system. You can also use the mitigation from the workers, which increase your dice rolls or decrease them, to help you find those doubles, which I think is really fun for bringing into that opportunistic nature of this game. What a fantastic system. So smooth, so clean, and it's my favorite out of these Feld designs. My number 65 goes to Cloudspire. It was my 26th last year. This is a MOBA-inspired tower defense game where you play as some sort of faction of sky dwellers, whether it be the giants on these sky islands, the people who are the energy that actually exists in the islands. You could be birds, you could be plants, you could be insects that burrow deep within the islands, or the sky pirates, or you could be the people on the bottom of the islands. You have these very fascinating factions that lead to very interesting gameplay with a whole host of unique abilities. And the gameplay itself is really straightforward. During your turn, you're going to be moving all of your minions. They're going to be going to a straight path towards that enemy base, and then you have some freedom when it comes to your champions. You have these units that are basically the leaders of your armies, and you'll move them around, and you can interact with all sorts of different features that exist on the board. There are these landmark tokens that are white that you can get some sort of powers from, or you can attack for extra points, and whenever you gain these points, you can use them to fuel your different abilities, build spires, and set up your defenses. Now, my favorite part about this game is actually the integration of the win condition and how it affects the entire game flow. So to win the game, you need to get your minions to the enemy base and destroy it. But most of the time, that's not going to happen. And this is really fascinating because the winner in this case is the person who has upgraded their base the most plus the remaining health of your base. Now, this is really fascinating because a lot of the times you're going to be using your energy to put up these spires, and these spires are basically what's repelling the enemy people. But if you do that, you're not going to be spending your stuff on your own personal base, which means at the end of the game, you're probably going to lose because you spent all your stuff on protection and not actually developing your own base. And that is fantastic design in my opinion, because you are putting this pressure on the players to upgrade themselves because that's how they're going to win, which is super interesting because you are making all these choices on your personal faction board to say, how am I going to improve my stuff and give myself special abilities? And not only is it good just to have all those abilities, that's actually how you win. This is so well done because usually the game is going to end in a draw because no one is really going to destroy the fortress. So you're constantly teetering the line of, do I upgrade myself and get abilities, or do I put out defenses in the form of spires or buy new abilities with my money? It's such a fantastic choice, and it really ramps up that asymmetry. And speaking of asymmetry, the factions themselves are unique and flavorful. The abilities are clean. I love the new updates, the rulebooks and references. They make it really accessible when it comes to teaching. So good on you, Cloudspire and Chip Theory team, for doing the best to make this game more approachable. Fantastic job. An amazing game. That is my number 65, Cloudspire. And now we move on to the 9s. This is my number 64, coming in at 85 last year. This is Wits and Wagers. Wits and Wagers is a trivia game, and it is the best trivia game in my opinion. The way that it approaches trivia is through the use of numerical values. When it's somebody's trivia question, everybody is going to write their answer on this token, and then they'll flip it face up. Let's say the question is, how many Pop-Tarts is the world record for the most Pop-Tarts eaten? Something like that. If you're unfamiliar, Pop-Tarts are a form of pastry dessert you could buy at the grocery store here in the United States. So the way this works is everybody reveals their answers, they put them in a line, and you'll organize them like so. Everybody then is going to guess who's the closest without going over. How fun, because you are not going to win this game based on how much you know, but how much you can anticipate and read what others may know. Do you base your answer based on their confidence? Do you base your answer based on what sounds right, or do you go crazy and do something a little bit different? There's lots of different versions of this game. For example, this is the party version, and all of the versions offer a little bit different when it comes to scoring, getting money, and placing bets, and I think they're all unique and fascinating. You can also always just strip all of this down and go back to a basic version of the game, so all of the additional modules are pretty much optional, and I think that's fantastic because you can change the difficulty as you see fit. This is a trivia game unlike Trivial Pursuit, where the winner is not determined by the person who just knows the most, but it has to do with the interaction and the knowledge of the other players and what you're willing to risk based on that knowledge. This is a game where you're always going to come from it learning something. This game features a lot of questions that are timeless. For example, it could ask you, hey, when was this specific thing invented? That's not going to change. That date's not going to be messed up. So these questions will always be relevant as well, and I think that's really fantastic. So a great trivia game, the best in my opinion, with the way that it balances reading the table with the knowledge you bring to the game. Fantastic game. That is my number 64, Wits and Wagers. My number 63 is going to the game Coconuts, a dexterity game where you play as monkeys doing your best to fling these little coconuts into these cups in the center of the table. Now on your turn, you only get one shot. You're going to do your best to land on the cup. If it's yellow, it just goes in front of you. If you get a red one though, you put it in front of you and then you get to go again. The game is over when all of the coconuts are in the cups or when you've created a stack of 6 cups in front of you. Whoever has the most in front of them wins the game. This is so simple, so straightforward, but so well done in the way that this dexterity flicking is. You're constantly teaching yourself as you're playing, getting comfortable with these launchers, and it has a great self-scaling system to stop runaway leaders. Not only can you aim for those cups in the center, but you can aim for other players' cups, and I really like that. If one player starts getting into the lead, you can very much start targeting them and move forward. I really like how this is a player-controlled system and how it really puts the pressure on them to ensure that no one is going to run away with that victory. So I really like the tension here. I also really like how the red cups allow for really standout moments. If you get one, you take another turn, and this could push you in to a winning position, or you could make a big chain of events where you bring a bunch of cups down from the same player because maybe they've gathered all red cups. So there's some really cool double-faceted sides when it comes to claiming these extra bonus turns. The game also comes with options for some take-that cards if you'd like, but seriously, the core system here is just so simple and so straightforward and so approachable that I think it makes for a fantastic dexterity game. This is a game that you can get played in less than 10 minutes and is so easy to set up and play with people of all ages. This is one of my favorite dexterity games in this category. It's my number 63, Coconuts. My number 62 is going to the game Nidavellir. This is an auction bidding game where you are going to be doing your best to collect sets of dwarves through the use of a coin crafting system. Every turn, you're going to be going into the taverns, and you'll do so by placing one of your coins on that tavern. Once you have all three placed face down, each tavern you'll go through, you'll reveal your coin, and that coin will be your bid for that tavern. If you have the highest number, you go first. You pick the one you want that's available. After you take your dwarf, you'll place it in front of you, and they'll be worth some points at the end of the game based on the type of dwarfs you're getting. These green ones, for example, they work like the greens in Seven Wonders. You'll square them and get that many points. This person has 416. All of them have their own unique ways of scoring, but here's the trick. The more of a specific color you get, the better the points are for that specific color. However, if you go wide, if you get all of the different colors, all 5, you get to claim what's known as a hero. And these heroes, things like Gerd here and the Dwerg brothers, they offer you special abilities that are going to affect you in-game. For example, Grid here, +7 is one of your coin. That's amazing. You can use that to really get a high lead on others and be winning these auctions consistently. And I think this is fantastic. The tension between going deep and wide here offers for a lot of interesting choices. And to really put pressure on that even more, in the middle of the game, whoever has the most of a specific color will get a bonus for the second half of the game. For example, if you have the most oranges here, you'll get this special tie-breaking token, which makes you win all ties. I love this system. It makes so much sense. It's so clean, and it's so quick to play. It's a game where you can get going super fast, but the strategy and depth is something that you're going to discover after multiple plays, especially when it comes to the large options of heroes. I think there are more than 20 different heroes with 20 unique abilities that you can pick from. A lot of them are just repeats on symbols or iterations on one another, but some are so unique and game-changing that they're going to make you want to try a whole bunch of new different strategies. In addition, this has a fantastic expansion of the form of Thingvellir, which adds a new tavern type that incentivizes you to win these auctions first because you get access to some really special loot, which includes these special scoring cards as well as new types of these mercenary dwarfs that you actually assign at the end of the round so you can swing majorities, which is really, really critical and powerful. And I didn't even talk about the coin crafting system. When you play your 0 coin, the coins you didn't use, you're actually going to combine and make a bigger coin that you can use. Nidavellir has a lot of awesome things going on with it, and it's one that I'm consistently excited to play more of, to see the different combinations of these cards and see how I fare when it comes to the taverns. So that is my number 62, Nidavellir. My number 61 is going to Middara, Unintentional Malum Act 1. This is a gigantic JRPG fantasy board game where you're going to be going through a large story and campaign play by creating characters, using those characters, upgrading them into different paths, and participating in scenarios to gain more loot, as well as progress your story in the world of Middara. Now, I'm not going to dive too deeply into the lore or the story at all, but I do want to mention that it is fantastic. There's a foreteller app that's going to give you narration for everything, and I think that's fantastic. I love when things do that because you can have it on the background when you're setting up the scenario or moving from thing to thing, and I think that's wonderful because I think it's done really well. Story is great, the writing is fun, and it's a world that I do want to stay in. Now, that being said, let's dive into the gameplay. The gameplay here has you starting off with character customization. You have so many choices, so many options, combos that interact based on the items, and a lot of freedom to really do whatever you want. You have a character with an ability, and if you're playing with lower player counts, you'll actually get the ability of a second character, kind of combine them. And then you have the choices when it comes to feats, which are little abilities that you can use every round. They'll unexhaust at the start of each your turn. So you have so many choices, so many knobs to turn, and I find that extremely satisfying. In addition, when you're ready to start the scenario, you take these square tiles, which I really appreciate. It's going to be really easy to find because they're numbered and easy to set up because you just place them on the board. And then you'll take your initiative cards, shuffle them up, and then put up these large stat cards for the monsters. And that's it. You just have one stat card, so they're easy to track and easy to follow. When it comes to your turn, you'll have SP, which are these action points, and you'll use them to move around, interact with things, attack, etc. My favorite part about this is how the dungeons develop throughout the course of play. You'll have some sort of objective you're trying to do, but along the way there will be these totems that will be littered around the board, and these totems trigger based on when they have line of sight with one of your characters, and I really like the way this is done. This is going to be that surprise factor that's going to introduce new elements to the scenario, and they basically progress when your characters do throughout the map. I love the way this works, and I love how it keeps it a surprise, but you're not having to file or flip through any things. You're actually going to use this little red decoder card to reveal this text, and I love the way this is done. They keep all of the secrets on one page, so there's no hassle, no fiddliness when it comes to that, and I love how easy it is to set up these things in this world. In addition to the totem system, I love the dice combat system in this game. Every time you roll, each roll is going to have a number of symbols, and you can allocate those symbols if you hit to take additional bonus actions. I love this. You've seen in things like Imperial Assault, but I love the way it's implemented here because a lot of the times you're going to be able to upgrade your dice based on the decision paths that you take. Rerolling is important, and you can even stress yourself to add additional dice to your attack that's going to give you just symbols so you can trigger even more special abilities. I love the way this system works. I love the customization, and I love the simplicity of the whole system once you start going. The first game is a little bit of a bear because you do have to know everything just to jump in, but as soon as you play one round, it clicks so well, and it's an easy one to integrate and to teach people. If you have one person that knows this game, fantastic, you can jump in and have a blast. I absolutely love Middara, and it's one that I'm enjoying playing through, and it's one that I still am always excited to get played. Fantastic game, super exciting, love the story, love the combat, love the customization, love the characters, love the story, love the scenario setups, love the surprises, love the way this is all portrayed and done. Amazing game. That is Middara, Unintentional Malum, Act 1, my number 61. And that's the list. Those are my 70 through 61 of my top 100 board games of all time. What did you think of the games on these lists? Do you think any of them should have been higher or lower? I'd love to hear what you think. But thank you so much for sticking through this with me. SideGame Strong.